Alright, we the Hebrew Israelites come out here week in, week out to prophesy the downfall of this kingdom, right? Letting you people know, and you know, the people that are on YouTube and the people that are out here, that this kingdom is going to be imminently destroyed by way of nuclear fire, by way of whom whom you can only call Jesus, God, and Christ, right? We're going to get straight into it. It's going to be Micah, the second chapter. And the first verse, and you like to start off by saying double honesty. All this honesty, your brothers will be pushing this truth out there in sincerity. All right. So this is Micah 2:1. It says, "Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds." Who be working evil upon their bed? We know who the wicked is in accordance to the scriptures, right? We know the wicked is Esau, right? We know the wicked are in rulership right now, pursuant to Job the 9th chapter and the 24th verse. That's how we know who the wicked are. And that's how we know that who be the ones that devise them wicked devices. Right? It says, "Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. And when morning is light, they practice it." Right? And that's speaking upon the martial law, the decrees that have been put in place. Right? The so-called Project Megiddos, the Project Rex that have been put into legislation. Right? Which are not, which are not being put into effect as yet. But when we know when the martial law kicks into place. Right, we know those devices that they put and they've authorized, right, going to be are really going to be for you Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans. Really, they're going to affect more you Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans more so than any other of these people upon the earth. Right, and that's why it says in the scriptures in Psalms, right, that's they make a tumult against the people of the Most High. Right, it says, "And when the morning is light, they practice it because it is in their power." Let's just jump to Job, the 9th chapter and the 24th verse. Right, it's Job 9 and 24, and it says, "The earth is given into the hand of the wicked." That means to say the people that are ruling the world right now are the wicked. Right? It says, "The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof," and that's called iconoclasm. When you cover the judges, the previous judges. Who are the previous judges? The Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, who are underneath the name of the Moors, right? Who built up all of these fancy and nice buildings that you see all up in England and in Europe and so on and so forth. All of these nice castles, right? Those were built up by Jakes, man. All right. It says, "The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof." If it's not this man, if it's not the man that is in power right now, Esau, right? Who, if not, where and who is he? All right. Let's jump back to Micah 2:2. It says, "And they covered fields," right? And we know this man coveted fields, but when he went over to the Americas and took over the Native Americans, right? He coveted them fields, man. All right. And covet means to take too long for something that you know doesn't belong to you. And that's what this man does. All right, going from border to border, like it says in Micah. That's why he's known as the border of the wicked, right? Because he goes from border to border, committing all kind of atrocities, right, and sucking out all of the natural resources in those different countries, right? That's why the scripture knows him as a wicked. That's why the scripture knows him as the border of the wicked. And that's why you go to these different countries, they don't want to know about you Americans and you English, right? Alright, it says, "And they cover fields and take them by violence." And we know this man, that we know who this man is in accordance to the scriptures. We know he's the one that goes around taking fields by violence. Right? That's why you gotta put the physical application of the scriptures into so-called layman's terms, man. Right, this is the same man that the scripture speaks of that goes into from coveting fields, man. Right, coveting he takes a man's heritage, like he's gonna say here. Right, it says, and they covet fields and they take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man, even a man's house, even a man's heritage. Right, and let's just jump to Jeremiah the 17th chapter and the 4th verse, 17 and 4. Yeah. This is Jeremiah 17 and 4. It says, "Thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage, right? And what's our heritage? We was going to discontinue from the Lord's statutes, commandments of the Most High that He put upon, that He gave to us, right? That the fact that He surnamed us as Israel, right, meant that we was going to follow His Lord's statutes, commandments. We were supposed to follow His Lord's statutes, commandments, right? And we broke our side of the covenant, and the Most High gave us the punishment. Right? When the Lord returns and redeems His people, the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, that covenant is going to be re-eminated. We're going to have those laws, statutes, commandments written within the written within our minds. We're going to be born pre-programmed to follow the Lord's statutes, commandments. But what's the point here? The point here is that the Scripture says in Micah, right? They even oppress a man's heritage, and we see it in here in Jeremiah 17:4 that we discontinue. Right, brother? Right? We're going to discontinue from our heritage. Alright, it says, and thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land that thou knowest not. Alright, so the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans was going to serve their enemies in the land that they didn't know. Right, and this is the land that we didn't know. Right, not only England, but more important to the point, America. Because that's where the bulk majority of the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans were taken to serve captivity. Right, to serve the punishment that was going to be put upon them for not following the Lord's statutes, commandments of the Most High. Alright, it says, and thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemy in the land that thou knowest not. For ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which will burn forever. Right, let's jump back to Micah 2:1. It says, and they covet fields, and they take them by violence, and houses, and they take them away. So they oppress a man, even and his house, even a man and his heritage. Right? And let's just prove that point once more. This is Revelation, the 2nd chapter. All right, and the 9th verse, and it says, Revelations. This is Revelation 3:9. It says, behold, I will make the synagogue of Satan. What's the synagogue of Satan? Which is Esau's powers. Right? It says, behold, I will make the synagogue of Satan, right? Which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come down and worship before thy feet. So these so-called Jews that claim to be the Jews, like it says in the Scripture in Micah 2:1, they oppress a man, even a man in his heritage, in terms of taking our heritage, right? Taking our name. Right? The Most High said He's going to make those people going to come down and worship before the Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans' feet, namely of the elect, as we're going to see down in the Scripture. Right? It says, behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, who say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Right? Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet. Right? And to know that I have loved them. Right? So these people going to know that the Most High loved the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans. Right? These people going to know. Right? Back in Micah 2:3, it says, therefore thus saith the Lord, behold, I am against this family. What family is that talking about? It's talking about Edom, right? The family, the whole family of Esau, right? It says, therefore thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family do I devise an evil. And what's that evil, right? Let's just jump to Let's jump to Job 20th chapter. Right, this is Job 20:3, and it says, behold, the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite for a moment. Right, because you took great joy in taking down the Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Right, but that was going to be only for a short time, because the Scripture doth say in Galatians, right, don't be deceived, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man shall reap, that's also shall we reap. So you reaped you sowed all of this captivity upon the Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans. That's what you're going to receive, right? And even just to prove that point, let's jump to Revelations, the 13th chapter. And the 9th verse is Revelations 13:9. It says, if any man have an ear, let him hear. So if this is basically Scripture talking to you, if this is basically saying this is for the elect, If you go to ear, if the Most High open up your spiritual, eye, right, your pineal gland, so to speak, hear the word of the Most High. All right, it says, if any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity, the people that led the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans into captivity, right? He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity, right? He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword, right? It says, here is the patience and the faith of the saints. So that's what the faith, that's what's keeping the faith and the patience of the saints going, man. That's what's keeping the saints going, right? It's back in Job, the 20th chapter, on the 3rd verse, and it says, but knowest thou not this of old, since man was placed upon the earth, that the triumphing of the wicked is short, that joy of the hypocrite for a moment, right? And we see that in Revelations, the 13th chapter, the 9th verse. That's the retribution that you're gonna get for putting the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans into captivity, right? That the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment. Though his excellency mount to the heavens and his head reached onto the clouds, right? And we know this man's excellency reaches onto the clouds because he put them spaceships up in the sky, right? And so we know we know who this is talking about, right? He says, yet he shall perish forever like his own dung, right? And they which have seen him shall say, where is he? So they're gonna come a period of time, like it says in Obadiah, right? We can come a period of time when we're gonna say, where is Esau, right? Because the Most High is gonna totally do away with Esau, man. All right, it says, yeah, he shall perish forever like his own dung. They which have seen him shall say, where is he? So there's gonna come a point where there ain't gonna be no Edomites, man. All right, it says, he shall fly away as a dream, right? He shall not be found. Yea, he shall be chased away as the vision of the night. I also which shall see him shall see him no more. Neither shall his place behold him anymore, right? His children shall seek to please the poor. And you see that, these certain ones of these peon Edomites try to see. They seek to please the poor, but really, right? You can't please the poor, right? It says, his children shall seek to please the poor, because the only way you can please the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans is if you subject yourselves, as the scripture says, underneath them, right? And the Most High is gonna have to come back for that to take place, right? It says, his children shall seek to please the poor, and his hands shall restore their goods, right? And it says, his bones are full of the sins of his youth, right? He shall lie down with them in the dust. Though wickedness be sweet in his mouth, and we know wickedness be sweet in Esau's mouth, man, right? Though wickedness be sweet in his mouth, though he hide it under his tongue, though he spare it and forsake it, but keep it still within his mouth, yet his meat is in his bowels is turned as a gal's asp. Now let's just jump to the point. This is the 22nd chapter, and it says, in the fullness of his sufficiency shall he be in straits. What the straits means, it means difficulties, right? So it says, every hand of the wicked shall be upon him. What wicked is he talking about there? All of the hand of the heathen is going to be upon him, right? Because he's been going from border to border, right, doing all kind of madness with these people's natural resources, blowing up these heathens' kids and so on and so forth. With which, first and foremost, we don't care about these different nations, right? But when it's gonna come to play, right? When it's gonna come to play, the Most High is gonna set up that these different nations gonna have their hands on Esau as well. All right, it says, in the fullness of his sufficiency shall he be in straits. Every hand of the wicked, or every hand of the heathen, shall be upon him. Right? When he is about to fill his belly, shall the Most High cast his fury upon him. So when this man's about to implement his RFID chip, the mark of the beast, so to speak, that's when the Most High is going to take it. That's when the Most High is going to take him down. All right? It says, when he's about to fill his belly, shall the Most High cast the fury of his wrath upon him, and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. So the Most High is going to take this man down whilst he's enjoying himself, right? He says, he shall flee from the iron weapon. And this is going to describe how this man is going to be destroyed. It says, he shall flee from the iron weapon, right? His steel bow shall strike him through. It is drawn, it cometh out of the body. Yea, the glittering sword cometh out of the galls, right? Terrors are upon him, right? And this is basically talking about those ICBMs, man, right? Terrors are upon him, right? And all darkness is hid in his secret places. A fire not blown, right, shall consume it, right? It shall go ill with him that is left in the tabernacles. the heavens shall reveal his iniquities. And how are the heavens going to reveal this man's iniquities? Because when you look up into the sky and we see all of these the beasts, so-called the beasts, right? For lack of really, we know this, the society is known as the beast in the scriptures, right? When we see that the smoke of this kingdom burning, right? That's how we gonna know that the Most High has revealed Esau's iniquity, man, right? Because you're gonna see it in these different countries, you're gonna see it in the sky, right? That's why the scripture says, right? The heavens is gonna reveal his iniquity, right? It says, the heavens shall reveal his iniquity, and the earth shall rise up against it. The increase of his house shall depart, and his goods shall flow away. And how are they going to flow away? They're going to be melted down, man. All right? And his goods shall flow away in the day of his wrath. This is the portion of the wicked man, and the heritage appointed to him by the Most High. So you might try to run away from your heritage, Esau, right? You try to steal the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans' heritage, but the Most High said this is the heritage appointed unto the wicked man. We know who the wicked is, pursuant to Job 9 and 24, pursuant to 1 Maccabees 3 and 48, pursuant to Malachi 1 and 1, right? You're the border of wickedness, man. You're the wicked, man. Right? And the Most High is going to make sure you take your heritage that you've been appointed. All right, let's jump back to Micah 2 and 3, and it says, all right, therefore thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family do I devise the evil. And we've just seen that evil in Job the 20th chapter, right? It says, against this family do I devise an evil, right? From which ye shall not remove your necks. Right, the Most High is not going to, that's symbolic. The Most High said, you're not going to remove your necks from that evil that the Most High is set up for. All right, it says, against his family do I devise an evil from which ye shall not remove your necks. Neither shall ye go up haughtily. You ain't going to go up proudly, for this time is evil. And that day shall one take up a parable against you and lament with a doleful lamentation. Right, we will be utterly spoiled. Right, he hath changed the portion of my people. Right, how hath he removed it from me, turning away he that hath divided our fields. Right, and that's pretty much it on that one. Let's jump to Psalms the 37th chapter and the first verse on down. Right, and it says, fret not thyself because of evildoers. So when we see this man putting these legislations and so on and so forth and his wicked decrees, right? The scripture says, fret not thyself for that. Right? It says, fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious of the workers of iniquity. So you ain't supposed to be envious of the workers of Esau and the prosperity that he's gotten from his wickedness. Right? It says, for soon shall they be cut down like the grass, and wither away as the green herb. Right? It says, trust in the Most High and do good. And what's the good that you're supposed to be doing? Coming out here in season, out of season, when it's cold, snowing, rain, sunshine. Right? It's supposed to be coming out here pushing the truth. Right? And really, in season, out of season, it also goes to whatever is happening in your day to day. Whatever happened day to day, the Most High said this word is going to come out. Right? It says, it was good. It says, trust in the Most High and do good, so thou shalt dwell in the land, right? And verily thou shalt be fed. Let's jump to Proverbs, the 1st chapter and the 26th verse. Right? And we can start from the 20th verse. It says, wisdom crieth without, right? She uttereth a voice in the streets. And that's where we obtain wisdom from. Because the elders, when we first came into this truth, when we learned from the elders, and the elders were teaching the truth within the streets. So we know wisdom crieth without within the streets, man. You ain't gonna find wisdom, the ability to make good judgments within the so-called books that this man offers. You're gonna find wisdom in the midst of the streets. So the scripture says the Most High set his men up to go out in the midst of the street, through the midst of Jerusalem, to tell his people they're going up. And that's why we come out here week in and week out to tell you Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans that you're going up on the lower statutes, commandments of the Most High. Pork that you're eating, you ain't supposed to be eating, right? Sleeping with another man's woman, you ain't supposed to be doing that. But more to the point, you don't fear the name of the Lord, right? You don't fear the Most High, right? And we know the fear of the Most High is the beginning of wisdom, right? The beginning of the ability to make good judgments, right? It says, wisdom crieth without, she crieth a voice in the streets, she crieth in the chief places of concourse, In the openings of the gates in the city, she uttereth her voice, saying, how long you simple ones, how long you simple Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, right? How long you simple ones will ye love simplicity, and the scorners delight in scorning, and the fools hate knowledge, right? And let's jump to Isaiah 6 and 11 real quick. Right, it's Isaiah 6 and 9 actually. It says, and he said, go and tell this people, right? Hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see ye indeed, but perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, right? And their eyes heavy, and shut up their eyes, lest their eyes see. Lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert, right, and be healed. And what's that the Most High doing that? The Most High was cursing the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, which constitute the 12 tribes of Israel, right? So they don't understand this word, right? And he says, then said I, how long? I said, how long is this seal on these Negroes, Hispanics, the simple ones, the 2/3? How long is this seal going to be upon them, right? Which is what it was talking about in Proverbs, Proverbs, the first chapter, and around about the 24th verse, where it says, how long you simple ones are you going to love simplicity? Right? It says, then said I, how long? It said, and he answered me, until the cities be laid waste without inhabitants, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate. Right? And that's how long the Most High is gonna have you Negroes. You ain't gonna get it right up until you see these missiles. You ain't gonna get it right up until these different kingdoms be destroyed that constitute that constitute Esau's kingdom. Alright? You ain't gonna get it up until this society is utterly broken down and you see the Lord in his wrath, man. Alright? Let's jump back to Proverbs 1 and 23. And it says, turn you at my reproof, and behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you, and I'll make known unto you my words. Right? So when we came into this thing, we turned at the Most High as reproof, because we was cut in the spirit. Right? We saw we was going up. Right? And the Most High made known unto us his words. Right? It says, turn you at my reproof, and behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you, and I'll make known unto you and I'll make my words known unto you. Because I have cold, and this to come out of the so-called 2/3. We're gonna touch on the 2/3 hopefully when we get further down the lesson. Right? It says, because I have called and ye have refused, and I have stretched out my hand, and no man regarded, but ye have set at naught all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. I will also laugh at your calamity, right? So the Most High is going, when all hell breaks loose, the Most High is going to laugh at your calamity, and the Most High is not going to physically laugh, right? But he's going to set his men up to laugh at you, you do simple ones, right? It says, I will also laugh at your calamity, I will mock when your fear cometh, and when your fear cometh as a desolation, and your distraction cometh as a whirlwind, and your distress and anguish cometh upon you. Then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer, and they shall seek me early, but they will not find me. Right? They hated knowledge and chose not to fear the Lord. Right? They will none of my counsel. Right? And they despise all my reproof. Right? Therefore shall they eat of their own ways, and they shall be filled in their own device. For the turning of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of the fool shall destroy them. Right? Let's just jump back to Psalm the 37th chapter, and this is the 4th verse. It says, delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. And what's the desires of our heart? Let's jump to Revelations, the 2nd chapter, and the 25th verse, and we go to Psalms, the 58th chapter, and the 1st verse, and then Psalms 149, 8. So we start off in Revelations 2 and 25, right? See what the desires of a righteous man are, right? And we know the righteous, right? When he sees oppression, when the righteous are in oppression, they moan and complain, right? Scripture says, surely oppression maketh a wise man mad. And we're oppressed right now. That's why we're mad. We getting into these scriptures, man. All right. So this is Revelations 2 and 25. Right. This is Revelations 2 and 25. It says, "But that which ye have already, hold fast until I come." So the Most High is saying there that which you Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans have, which is the truth, which are of the elect, by the way, right? That which the elect already have, hold fast until I come, right? right? Meaning to say, come out here, push this truth until the Most High comes, right? But that which ye already have, hold fast until I come, and he that overcometh and keepeth my works, overcometh the things of this world, right? And keep the works of the Most High, right? And to him will I give power over the nations. So the man of the elect that the Most High selected from the foundations of the earth, right? That hold fast to this truth and pushes this truth until this kingdom be destroyed, right? To him will the Most High give power over these different nations, man, over these different heathen, man. All right? It says, to him will I give power over the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod, right? With a rod of iron, right? And as the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I have received of my Father, right? And let's see the second example in Psalm the 58th chapter and the first verse. Let's jump down to the 10th verse. Psalm 58 and 10, it says, the righteous shall rejoice when he seeth the vengeance, right? He shall wash his feet in the blood of the wicked, so that they shall say, verily there is a reward for the righteous, verily he is a God that judges the earth, right? So the righteous is going to wash their feet in the blood of the wicked, right? So let's see the last example. This is Psalms 149 and 8. Psalms 149, and we start off at, we start from the top. It says, praise ye the Lord, sing unto him, unto the Lord a new song. And what's the new song that we're singing unto the Lord? Refinding his truth, knowing that we're the true Jews, we're the true people of the Most High, right? And it says, praise ye the Lord, right? Sing unto the Lord a new song, right? And it's like a new song, but really it's an old song, because we've always, we know him, but that period of time when we was in hardcore captivity, right? Esau, by the way of the Most High, pulled the name of the Lord away from us, and pulled the fact away from us that we was the people of the Most High. But like it says in the Hosea, right, around about the first chapter, around about the 20th verse, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like it says in Hosea, in that place where it says unto you that the Lord, you are not my people, there shall it be said, you are the sons of the living power, right? It says, sing unto the Lord a new song, and his praise in the congregation of the saints. Let Israel, the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, or all the Israel dispersed throughout the four corners of the earth, that they were going to look like that was going to look like the different nations, right? Let Israel rejoice in him that made him. Let the children of Zion be joyful in their king. Let them praise his name, right? The name is important. Let them praise his name and dance, right? Let them sing praises unto him with timbrel and harp, right? For the Lord hath taken pleasure in his people. The Most High is going to take pleasure in the Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, right? The Most High have taken pleasure in his people, and he will beautify them with salvation. And how is the Most High going to beautify us in the salvation? The Most High is going to beautify us by way of him changing us into them new bodies, man. Right, the new bodies that are going to be pre-programmed to follow the Lord's statutes and commandments. And more so than that, he's going to beautify us in salvation by him destroying this wicked kingdom, right? And pursuant to Daniel, the 2nd chapter and the 44th verse, right? He's going to set up that kingdom that's never going to be destroyed and never going to be given to these other people, man. All right? It says, he shall beautify the meek with salvation. Right, let the saints be joyful in glory. Let them sing aloud upon their beds. Let the high praises of the Most High be in their mouth, and the two-edged sword in their hands, to execute vengeance upon the heathen. Right. So the Most High said, let the two-edged sword be in the hands of the righteous. Right, to execute vengeance upon the heathen. Right. It says so. The righteousness is all about executing vengeance, executing judgments, man. All right, to execute vengeance upon the heathen and the punishment upon the people, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron, to execute upon them the judgment that is written. This honor have all the saints. This honor, it says, praise ye the Most High. So this honor, the praise of binding their nobles in fetters of iron, right? That's what's going to be applied, right, unto the men of the Lord. So like it says in Psalm 37th chapter, right? And the 4th verse says, delight thyself also in the Lord, and he will give thee the desires of the heart. Right? That's the desires of the heart of the righteous, man. Right? The desire to bind these people's nobles and fetters of iron, man. Right? He says, It's the 5th verse in Psalm 37. Right? It says, commit thy way unto the Lord and trust in him always. Sorry, and trust in him, and he shall bring it to pass. Right? He shall bring forth the righteousness as the light and the judgment as noonday. Right? It says, this is the 7th verse, rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Right? It says, fret not thyself because of him that prospereth in his ways. We ain't supposed to be, getting all butthurt just because someone getting prosperous by way of iniquity. Right? Fret not thyself because of him that prospereth in the way, because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass. Right? Now let's jump to Ecclesiasticus. Second Ezra, the 7th chapter and the 6th verse. Right? Because the scripture says, in fact, let's just go to Ecclesiasticus, the 2nd chapter. This is Ecclesiasticus, the 2nd chapter and the 1st verse. It says, my son, if thou come to serve the Most High, prepare thyself for temptation, which he was talking about in Psalms the 37th chapter, when the Most High basically set it up to where we ain't supposed to be praying. So, right, you ain't get, you ain't gonna get, we have spiritual understanding. You get angry sometimes, but we have the spiritual understanding that this man was gonna be our oppressor in this time. Right? It says, my son, if thou will come to serve the Lord, prepare thyself for temptation. Set thy heart aright, right? Set your mind aright, right? And constantly enjoy. So whatever's happening in your worldly, your day-to-day, just constantly enjoy. Alright? It says, and make not haste in the time of trouble, cleave unto him and depart not away, right? That thou mayest be increased at the last end. So that's what it's all about, man. It's about increasing at the last end. Let's just jump to 2nd Ezra, the 6th chapter and the 9th verse real quick. Right, 2nd Ezra 6 and 9. Right? 7. Right, 2nd Ezra is the 6th chapter and the 9th verse, and it says, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follow it. Right? So it's all about the last end, man. Right? Because this kingdom ain't been destroyed yet, Esau's still in power, like the scripture says. But when he's going to be destroyed, Jacob's going to be the beginning of it that follow it. And we know it that follow it ain't going to be destroyed, man. It ain't going to be left to other people. Right? So this is back in Ecclesiasticus, the 2nd chapter and 3rd verse. It says, cleave unto him and depart not away, that thou mayest be increased in the last. It's the same thing like it says in Revelations, the 2nd chapter and the 25th verse, which we already touched on. Right? It says, whatever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully, and be patient when thou art changed to a low state. Right? For gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. Right? Believe in the Most High, and he will help thee. And how the Most High is going to help the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, you're supposed to stay focused on this trip. Right? And whatever perils is brought upon thee, you're supposed to take cheerfully. Right? And then at the last time when you see these missiles coming, right, you wasn't gonna bug out, you're gonna be focused, right, and do what you gotta do in that day. And the Most High, Lord willing, he's gonna have mercy. Alright? It says, for gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. Right? Believe in him and he will help thee, or that I wear aright and trust in him. Ye that fear the Lord wait for his mercy. And when is his mercy gonna be manifest? Right? You see these missiles flying all over the place, and the Most High lets you know who his elect is. Right? Do not go aside lest ye fall. Right? Ye that fear the Lord, believe in him, and your reward shall not fail. Right? Let's jump back to Psalms the 37th chapter. Right? It says, cease from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not thyself, right, in any wise to do evil, for evildoers shall be cut off, right? But those that wait upon the Lord they shall inherit the earth. Right? And that's what we saw in 2nd Ezra 6th chapter and the 9th verse. Right? And that's what we saw in Revelation 2nd chapter and the 25th verse as well. Right? And it says, right, for yet a little while, right, and the wicked shall not be, right? Yea, thou shalt diligently consider his place, and it shall not be. But the meek shall inherit the earth and delight in the abundance of peace. Now let's jump to it says, the wicked plotteth against the just, right, and gnashes upon him in his teeth. Right, let's jump to Isaiah the 10th chapter and the 1st verse there.
Which of the voices? Answer to you as well.
Right, it's Isaiah 10:1. It says, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, right, and write grievousness upon their right grievousness which they have prescribed, to turn aside the needy from judgments, and to take away the right from the poor, right, and that the widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless, and which is what Esau does, man. He robbed the fatherless. We're the fatherless, right? Pursuant to the scriptures, the prophecy, right? We're the ones that the Most High set it up to where fathers ain't gonna be around, right? Now let's jump to 2nd Ezra, the 8th chapter, right? And we start from the 50th verse, right? It says, for many great miseries shall be done, right, in the latter times. For many great miseries shall be done to them in the latter times that shall dwell in the world, because they walked in great pride. Right? So many great miseries are going to come to pass right now because of the pride that these people have. Right? He says, now let's jump to Mark. Yeah. This is Mark 13:8. It says, for nation shall rise up against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be earthquakes in divers places, and famines and troubles. These are the beginnings of sorrow, right? So these are the great troubles that he's speaking of in the 2nd Ezra, the 8th and the 50th verse. Right? It says, for many great miseries shall be done to them that dwell in the earth in the latter times. To them that in the latter times shall dwell in the earth, because they have walked in great pride. But understand for thyself, and seek out glory for such as be like unto thee. So we're supposed to be looking for the elect. We ain't supposed to be all worried about the entirety of the people of the Most High. We're only concerned about the elect, right? And that's what the scripture says. Seek thou, but understand for thyself, and seek out the glory for such as be like unto thee. Right? For unto you is paradise open, and the tree of life is planted, and the time to come is prepared. Right? And plenteousness is ready made. A city is built, and the rest is allowed. Yea, perfect goodness and wisdom. Right? Let's jump to 2nd Ezra, the 7th and the 6th. It says, and there's another thing, a city is builded, right, and it's set up on a broad field full of good things. It was saying in 2nd Ezra, the 8th chapter and around about the 52nd verse, right? There's another thing, a city is building. There's another thing, a city is builded and it's set up on a broad field and full of good things. The entrance thereof is narrow, right, and there is set in a dangerous place, like as they were a fire on the right hand, right, and a deep water, and on the left a deep water, which is what it was talking about in Ecclesiasticus, the 2nd chapter, right, about the difficulties that are going to come upon the men of the Lord, the elect, right, which are of the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans. All it is will disperse throughout the four corners of the earth, right, before they inherit the kingdom. All right, it says, the entrance thereof is narrow and set in a dangerous place to fall, like as it were a fire on the right hand, and on the left on the left is deep water. All right, and it says, in this city, if this city be given unto a man for an inheritance, if he never shall pass the danger set before it, how shall he receive this inheritance? And I said, it is so, Lord. Then said he unto me, even so is Israel's portion. So Israel's portion is set up in such a way that they're going to have to go through difficulty to get it. All right? It's back in 2nd Ezra, the 8th chapter and the 52nd verse. And it says, for unto you is paradise open, which we just read about in 2nd Ezra, the 7th chapter and the 6th verse. Right? The tree of life is planted, and it shall and the time to come is prepared. Plenteousness is made ready. A city is builded, and rest is allowed. Yea, perfect goodness, right? Perfect goodness and wisdom, right? The root of evil sealed up is from you, and weakness of the moth is hid from you, and corruption is fled into hell to be forgotten, right? Sorrows are past, and in the end is showed. And in the end is showed the treasures of immortality. So in the end of all this thing, as we've been seeing throughout the scriptures, in the end of all of this, right, his treasure is going to be manifested, right? The treasures are the treasure of immortality, named, right? Where man's going to live a whole 1,000 years, man, right? Feeling no pain, walking, walking with no pain in their back, or talking about their back hurts and so on and so forth. That's what the kingdom is going to be like, man, right? He says. And therefore ask thou no more questions concerning the multitude that will perish. Because we've just seen in 2nd Ezra 7 and 6, a multitude is going to perish, pursuant to Zechariah the 13th and 8th chapter, where the 2/3 is going to be destroyed, man. Right? And the Most High said, don't worry about it. Right? And it says, right, for when they had taken liberty and despised the Most High, which we saw in Proverbs the 1st chapter and the 20th verse, right? It says, and thought scorn of his law and forsook his ways. Moreover, they've trodden down the righteous, and we see the wicked. Oh, they've trodden down the righteous, man, right? And it says, and said in their hearts that there is no God, yea, knowing that knowing they must die, right? For as the things aforesaid shall receive you, so thirst and pain prepared for them, right? So thirst and pain is prepared for these. It's prepared for these the wicked ones of Israel, right? The wicked ones of the Negroes, Hispanic.